Yo, what's up, internet? So, it has officially been 1 year with my 1962 Panhead. Finished building it this time last year, took it up to La Espada for the very first time, and I've just been ripping it ever since. It's been fantastic, so let's talk about it. I realized that I've never actually told the story about how I got this bike to YouTube, at least, and I only really have 3 videos on this bike, so I'm gonna try and make this video as comprehensive as possible, and let's get right into it. Let's start with how I got the bike. The story starts pretty much exactly how I've bought every other motorcycle. I was perusing Facebook Marketplace, and I noticed a stock 1962 FLH for a pretty awesome price in the hometown of my girlfriend. And so, naturally, I was already headed there to see her for the weekend. Hit the dude up on Marketplace, went over to go take a look. There she was. Didn't have the money at the time. However, approximately 2 days later, I sold my black and orange shovelhead chopper. I'll insert a picture right here, if you guys recall that bike. Sold that bike, and a day later, turned back around, handed the man the money, rode home on the Panhead. And that's where the whole story really starts. Then after that, it was on. I already knew I wanted to build a chopper out of it. And I had watched Hell's Angels 69 about 300 times, it felt like. And I knew that I wanted the silhouette to kind of be modeled after Terry the Tramp's red generator shovel in that bike. You know, like the 4-6 over wide glide, the tall apes, the split tanks on it. It was just the perfect 60s chopper silhouette to me. And that's basically the whole motif of this bike, is just classic 60s chopper. And so the swing arm frame that the bike came in was a drop seat dual glide frame. And I knew that I didn't really want to chop that up because it was still a special piece. So I ended up sourcing this hardtailed shovelhead frame that the motor and transmission currently sits in right now. And honestly, I didn't really care too much about having any sidecar loops on the front of the down tubes or anything like that. It's got cast axle plates, which was really what I was after. So the frame worked out perfect for what it is. And then all the other parts, or most of the other parts on there, I really wanted to try and fabricate as much as I could on this bike, which is exactly what I did. And we'll go over some of those parts later. But another super important part of the silhouette of this bike are the split tanks. They are original 1962 split tanks. And they're nice and narrow. They're a little bit more sleek looking than your standard fat bobs of today's day and age. That's what makes that, era of tanks look so cool and wicked. But yeah, let's take a closer look. When I first got the bike, it had a Super E on it, and I knew I wanted to keep the classic aesthetic going, so I had to run a Linkert. This is the M74B, and so far it's been a good carburetor, not perfect, and I'll talk about that right now. So all of last year, I really had 0 problems with this carburetor whatsoever. However, this just goes to show you that you really do need to keep up with these old bikes, and if they sit for just a little bit, some stuff can go a little haywire. So I went to go kick over the bike a few days ago, and this is only about the 3rd ride of the season that I've gone on. And the bike, when the main jet would engage, the bike would just completely die. And at first I was chasing some electrical gremlins. I was testing my electronic distributor, testing my coil, testing my generator and voltage regulator. All that stuff tested fine. So I was pretty stumped. And then I decided to just take the carb apart after talking to one of my friends. And in doing so, I found that the float had actually come off of its needle a little bit inside of the bowl. And for whatever reason, the main jet was a little bit clogged, but I was just having some uneven fuel distribution there. So I didn't rebuild, I just redid the inside of the bowl there. Rebuilt the fuel filter though, and it seemed running like a top now, so yeah. The top end of the motor has also been rebuilt. That's one of the main things that I was worried about when I first got this bike, was what was the condition of the inside of the motor. And I was ultimately pleased to find out that when I tore into it, it still had original 10 over pistons, 10 over bore. The jugs were not scored majorly at all, but I did not build this bike to hammer on. I am pretty gentle with this bike. I like to get on it, that's for sure, but I'm not railing on this thing at all. I want this bike to, have a good long life as far as the motor and its functionality goes. So I treat it as you should treat a vintage piece of history from that era. In the past year, I've only broken down on this bike once, and that was on a long trip from here in Philadelphia area up to the Poconos with my friends. my clutch linkage actually ended up falling off twice. First time, it was this little connector that I have here, this cage connector. And then it was this little carriage connector that I have there. So as you can see, we jerry-rigged some stuff up there and it's been running ever since. Also, my outer primary bolts have just been kind of rattling away one by one. So you can see I've got some makeshift zip ties just kind of holding on the tin primary there. I'll fix these eventually, but for now they just kind of hang out. Some handmade bits and bobs on this bike include the exhaust, the sissy bar, the tail light, and the shifter over here, which is probably one of my favorite parts of this whole bike. Just kind of got a nice little flowy shape to it. And with the exhaust, literally everybody always asks me if I burn my butt on it. The answer is no, I do not burn my butt on it, but I do have that heat shield there. I guess you could call it a heat shield. Rather unfortunate occurrence. The bike accidentally tipped over on me and it dented and cracked the pipe right there pretty bad. So I just made that heat shield to kind of go over it, and it masks it up where I made the repair pretty awesomely. I don't even know if awesomely is a word, but anyways, looks good on there. But yeah, that's really all I can think of for today's video. I'll be back after it with the Born Free build content shortly. I'm right in the middle of the bodywork stage, so it's kind of a long and monotonous process. Anyways, drop some comments about the Panhead below if you have any. Other than that, peace.